In the silent theatre of the mind, a story is always playing. It is the performance that begins the moment you awaken and often continues long after the body has settled into the stillness of night. There are no tickets, no programs, and the audience is only ever an audience of one. On this stage, memories flicker like ghosts in the wings, and futures are rehearsed in countless speculative scenes. But there is one actor, one voice that so often commands the spotlight. It is the critic. You know this voice intimately. It does not need to shout to be heard. Its power is in its persistence, in the way it whispers just beneath the surface of your conscious thoughts. It sounds remarkably like you, which is its most clever disguise. It borrows your own tone, your own reasoning, and uses it to construct a narrative of doubt. A person seeks peace. They arrange their outer world to be calm and orderly, hoping that the quiet of the room will seep into the quiet of the mind. Yet, they lie down, and the performance begins. The critic steps forward, its voice clear in the newfound silence. It replays a mistake from the day, an awkward word, a moment of hesitation, holding it up to a cruel light for endless examination. It fast-forwards to tomorrow, presenting a list of potential failures, of social judgments, of hurdles too high to clear. It speaks with an air of authority, as if it is the voice of reason, the guardian of your safety. It claims it is only trying to protect you, to make you better, to prevent future pain by dissecting the past and bracing for the worst. But this protection feels like a cage. Its guidance feels like a weight. The peace a person seeks is fractured by this internal monologue, this relentless narrator of lack. This voice is a fundamental part of the human architecture, the ego's attempt to navigate a complex world. It builds a fortress of rules and expectations, believing that if every variable can be controlled, then suffering can be avoided. The critic is the sentry at the gate of this fortress. It inspects every action, every thought, every feeling, checking it against a blueprint of perfection that can never truly exist. It is born from a place of fear, the fear of not being enough, the fear of rejection, the fear of the unknown. And so, it tries to shrink your world into a manageable, predictable size. It advises you not to take the risk, not to speak your heart, not to be vulnerable. Stay small, it whispers, and you will stay safe. But the soul does not yearn for safety, it yearns for expression. The spirit does not long for the predictable, it longs for the mystery, and so a tension is born. A quiet, internal war between the boundless spirit and the cautious critic. You feel this tension in your body. It is the tightness in your chest when you are about to step into something new. It is the heat in your face when you feel judged. It is the heavy, weary ache that comes from a day spent wrestling with your own thoughts. For years, you may have believed that the only way to find peace is to defeat this critic, to argue with it, to prove it wrong, or to silence it through sheer force of will. But you have likely discovered that fighting this voice only gives it more strength. Arguing with it is like arguing with an echo. It only amplifies the sound. The harder you push against it, the more real and solid it seems. This journey we are embarking upon is not about war. It is not another strategy for battle. It is about something far more subtle and far more profound. It is about wisdom. It is about learning to see the critic not as you, but as a pattern of energy passing through you. It is about understanding its nature so thoroughly that you no longer need to be commanded by its voice. The goal is not to silence the critic, for it is a part of the mind's machinery. The goal is to find the silence that is already here, the deep, abiding stillness that exists behind the noise. This peace is your birthright. It is not something you must build, but something you must uncover. It is the vast, quiet sky, and the critic is merely a passing cloud. Tonight, we will learn the art of allowing the clouds to drift by without letting them become the whole of your weather. We will explore ancient stories and timeless wisdom that hold the key to quieting the inner storm. You will not be asked to add anything to yourself, but rather to let go of the burdens you were never meant to carry. You will learn to distinguish the voice of fear from the voice of wisdom, the noise of the ego from the stillness of your true nature. This is a path of unlearning, of dissolving, of returning to the deep and restful center of your own being. So, find your comfortable space. Allow your body to feel heavy, supported, and at ease. Let the outer world and its demands fade into a distant hum. There is nothing for you to do, nothing for you to fix. Simply be here. Let go of the day, and allow this journey into deep stillness to begin. To understand this voice, we must first understand its source. Imagine a man who, wandering through the mountains, discovers the deep, dark mouth of a cave. Drawn by the mystery, he steps inside. A profound silence envelops him, a quiet so complete it feels like a presence. Unsettled, he shouts into the darkness, "Who's there?" And from the depths, a voice shouts back, "Who's there?" He narrows his eyes, his heart quickening. "You are a fool," he yells, his anger rising. Instantly, the voice replies, "You are a fool." Convinced now that a malicious stranger is mocking him from the shadows, he screams a torrent of curses, and each one is returned to him with perfect, cutting clarity. He spends hours fighting this unseen enemy, throwing rocks into the blackness, exhausting his voice and his strength, until he finally collapses, defeated by the very echo he created. This ancient tale is not about a man in a cave of rock and stone. It is the story of a person in the cave of their own mind. The inner critic is this echo. It is not some separate, malevolent entity that has taken up residence within you. It is a reflection. It is the energetic reverberation of every harsh word you have ever absorbed, every standard you were told you failed to meet, every subtle message of inadequacy from childhood, from culture, from past relationships. These old sounds bounce off the walls of your consciousness, and in a moment of quiet or vulnerability, you hear them as if they are fresh and true. And like the man in the story, a person believes the echo is a monster. They fight it, they argue with it, they try to overpower it, exhausting their life force in a battle against a phantom. The mind, in its effort to keep you safe, records everything. It is a magnificent, if indiscriminate, archive of experience. A cutting remark from a teacher 20 years ago is filed away. The disappointed look of a parent is stored with perfect fidelity. The success of a rival, the curated perfection on a screen, the cultural worship of youth and wealth, all of it is recorded. The critic has access to this entire library. Its voice is not its own. It is a collage, a mosaic of old pains and borrowed judgments. When you are tired or stressed, when you are on the cusp of growth, The critic selects the most potent of these recordings and plays them back. It does this because the ego mistakes familiarity for safety. The familiar pain of "I am not good enough" feels, to the primitive brain, safer than the unknown territory of "what if I am." You have felt this echo. When you scroll through the images of other people's lives, a seemingly endless gallery of triumphs and beauty, the critic begins its whisper. "Look how far behind you are," it says. "Their life is vibrant, and yours is dull." The images on the screen are not speaking these words. They are inert pixels of light. The screen is simply the wall of the cave, off which your own deepest insecurities are echoing. You are not truly reacting to their life. You are reacting to a story about your own that has been triggered. Or consider the aftermath of an important meeting. You walk away, and the performance begins. "You should have said this," the echo insists. You hesitated, and they saw your weakness. This is not an objective analysis. This is the echo of an old fear, the fear of being seen as incompetent, a fear that was likely planted in you long before that meeting ever took place. The profound liberation offered in Zen wisdom begins here. With this simple recognition, you cannot win a fight with an echo. The only way to change the echo is to change the source of the sound, to scream kinder words, or, more powerfully, to fall silent, to sit in the cave of the mind, and when the echo of "you are a fool" returns, to simply observe it, to see it not as a truth, but as a memory, a sound wave losing its energy, a ghost of a past moment. You don't have to believe it. You don't have to engage it. You can greet it with silence. And in that silence, you discover something remarkable. You discover that the cave itself is not hostile. The darkness is not an enemy. It is just space. It is potential. It is a profound, peaceful stillness that was there all along, waiting patiently behind the noise. The peace is not in the echo's absence, but in your refusal to answer its call. Once a person learns to sit in the silence of the cave, to let the echoes of the past fade without giving them new energy, another pattern of the mind reveals itself. It is the incessant need to judge, to label every unfolding moment as either a victory or a defeat. The critic is not just a voice of doubt, it is a relentless judge, and its gavel comes down on every event of your life. It is here that the wisdom of an old farmer offers a profound sanctuary. This farmer lived in a small village, and his most prized possession was a beautiful horse. One day, the horse broke through its fence and ran away. The farmer's neighbors came to console him. "Such terrible luck," they said, shaking their heads. The farmer simply looked at them and replied, "Maybe." A week later, the horse returned, and it was not alone. It led a herd of magnificent wild horses back to the farm. The neighbors gathered again, their faces beaming. "Such incredible luck," they exclaimed. The farmer, calmly observing the new animals, replied, "Maybe." The next day, the farmer's son was attempting to train one of the wild horses when the animal threw him, and the son's leg was badly broken. The villagers returned, their faces etched with pity. "How awful," they lamented. "First good luck, then this terrible misfortune." The farmer, tending to his son's injury, looked up and said only, "Maybe." A month passed, and the emperor's army marched into the village, conscripting every able-bodied young man for a war they would not survive. The farmer's son, with his broken leg, was the only one left behind. This story reveals the source of true inner peace. The farmer's peace did not come from his circumstances, which were in constant flux. His peace came from his mind. The neighbors, in their rush to label every event, were thrown back and forth on the waves of fortune and misfortune. Their happiness was fragile, dependent on external events they could not control. They represent the voice of the inner critic. Your critic functions exactly like these neighbors. It rushes to judgment. When you lose a job, it screams, "Disaster." When you receive praise, it clings to it, fearing its loss, whispering, "Don't mess this up." It lives in a world of rigid binaries, good and bad, success and failure, right and wrong. This constant labeling is the very engine of anxiety. The farmer's wisdom is the wisdom of non-attachment, a cornerstone of Zen practice. His simple word, maybe, is a sacred pause. It is an acknowledgement that he cannot see the whole picture. He understands that a single event, stripped from the vast and intricate tapestry of time, has no inherent meaning. What appears to be a catastrophe may be a blessing in disguise. What feels like a great victory may contain the seeds of a future challenge. The ancient Stoic philosophers of the West taught a similar truth. They spoke of the dichotomy of control, the wisdom to know the difference between what is within our power and what is not. The farmer cannot control the horse, the sun's leg, or the emperor's army, but he can control his response, his judgment, his inner state. The critic, on the other hand, obsesses endlessly over what you cannot control, tormenting you with outcomes that are, and always were, outside of your command. You have seen this play out in your own life. A relationship ends, and the critic immediately calls it a failure, a sign of your unlovability. It paints a future of loneliness. But what if you could meet that pain with the farmer's quiet strength? Maybe this ending is making space for a deeper self-love. Maybe it is protecting you from a future that was not aligned with your soul's true path. When a project at work does not go as planned, the critic replays every mistake, labeling the outcome a personal failing. But with the sacred pause, another perspective becomes available. Maybe this perceived failure will teach you something essential. Maybe it will redirect your efforts towards something even more meaningful. This is not a practice of indifference or passivity. The farmer still mends the fence. He still tends to his son. It is a practice of profound engagement with what is real, your actions, your effort, your integrity, while releasing the exhausting burden of judging the results. It is about placing your energy where it has power, in the quality of your own response. By letting go of the need to label everything, you starve the critic of its fuel. It cannot stir anxiety about a future you are no longer trying to predict. It cannot shame you for a past you are no longer labeling as a mistake. You begin to rest in the spaciousness of the unknown, finding a deep and resilient peace in the simple, powerful act of trusting the unfolding of your life. When a person ceases to label the river of life as good or bad, they find a deep and steady calm, like the farmer watching his horses. But the river itself still flows. The stream of consciousness within the mind never truly stops. Thoughts, feelings, sensations, and memories continuously arise and pass away. The critic's strategy then shifts. If it cannot convince you that an event is a catastrophe, it will try to convince you that a thought is a catastrophe. It will hook you with a single, troubling thought and pull you into the current. This is why the masters of old taught the wisdom of the riverbank. They taught their students to imagine themselves sitting peacefully on the soft grass beside a gently flowing river. The river, they explained, is your mind, and every thought, every feeling, every impulse that arises is simply a leaf floating on its surface. For a moment, be there now. See this river before you. It is not a violent, raging torrent, but a steady, ceaseless current. The water is clear. The sun is warm on your skin. Your only task is to sit and watch. A leaf appears, perhaps a memory of something you said yesterday. You simply note it. Ah, a memory. You watch as it drifts into view and then slowly, gently, floats away downstream. Another leaf appears. This one carries a worry about tomorrow. It is the voice of the critic, planning for a future that does not exist. You do not jump into the water to chase it. You do not throw a stone at it. You simply acknowledge its presence. A worry, and you watch it, too, continue on its journey and disappear from sight. A leaf of sadness, a leaf of joy, a leaf of anger, a leaf of boredom, they all float by. They are not you. They are the contents of the river. You are the silent, unmoving witness on the shore. This is the practice of non-identification. The entire power of the inner critic is derived from one fundamental illusion, the belief that you are your thoughts. When the critic whispers, "You are not capable," you collapse the space between the observer and the observed. The thought becomes an identity. You merge with it, and its story becomes your reality. The practice of watching the leaves on the river creates a space, a sacred gap between the awareness that you are and the thoughts that you have. In this space, freedom is born. You shift from "I am anxious" to "I am aware of a feeling of anxiety passing through me." You move from "I am a failure" to "I am observing the critic generator story about failure." The thought is no longer a commander, but merely a suggestion, a piece of driftwood in a vast river. This practice transforms your relationship with modern anxieties. Imagine a person lying awake at 3 a.m, their heart pounding with a nameless dread. The mind river is churning with thoughts, worries about money, health, relationships. The untrained response is to dive in, to grab onto a worry leaf and follow its frantic path, which only leads to more worry leaves, pulling the person into a vortex of panic. But the one who has practiced sitting on the riverbank does something different. They feel the pounding heart, they hear the fearful thoughts, and they metaphorically take their seat. Ah, the critic is active tonight, they observe. They place the thought, "What if I can't pay this bill?" on a leaf and let it go. They place the sensation of the racing heart on another leaf and let it go. They are not denying the reality of the thoughts or feelings, but they are refusing to become them. They are resting in the awareness that is watching it all unfold. The same is true for the painful echoes of the past. A difficult memory can surface, and the critic will seize it, wrapping it in shame and regret. This is like being snagged by a branch in the river, held in a cold, dark eddy. The practice is to gently unhook yourself and place that memory on a leaf, to watch it with a compassionate detachment. You see it for what it is, an event that happened, an energy that is now passing through your awareness. It is not the present moment. By watching it float by, you honor its passing without allowing it to drown you. You are the sky, not the storm cloud. You are the awareness, not the thought. This riverbank is always here. It is the quiet, ever-present stillness within you. It is your true home, a place of refuge that is available in any moment, no matter how turbulent the river of the mind may seem. Resting on the riverbank of awareness, a person learns to watch the leaves of their own mind float by. But what happens when another boat crashes into yours? What happens when the actions or words of another, or even the turns of fate, seem to collide directly with your peace? There is a story told of a man crossing a river in a small boat on a misty morning. He is enjoying the quiet solitude when suddenly, out of the thick fog, another boat slams into his, jarring him violently. His first reaction is a surge of hot anger. He opens his mouth to scream at the careless person who hit him, to curse their incompetence. But as he looks closer, he sees that the other boat is empty. It simply broke free of its moorings and was carried by the current. At that moment, his anger vanishes. There is no one to blame. There is nothing to be angry at. There is only an empty boat, a river, and the need to adjust his own course. The story continues with a vital question. If the man's anger disappeared the moment he saw the boat was empty, was the anger ever truly in the collision? Or was it in his assumption that there was someone to blame? The collision was the same in both scenarios. The only thing that changed was his perception. This is the wisdom of the empty boat, a teaching that holds the power to dissolve the very foundation of the critic's influence. A person suffering, their anger, their resentment, their feeling of being personally slighted, rarely comes from the event itself. It comes from the story the critic instantly weaves around it. A story that always involves a someone in the other boat. The critic's primary function is to populate every empty boat it encounters. It is a master storyteller of intent, and its favorite character is the villain. When a colleague is short with you in a meeting, the critic doesn't see a person struggling with their own pressures or anxieties. It sees an enemy who is intentionally disrespecting you. When a friend doesn't reply to your message, the critic doesn't consider that they are busy or overwhelmed. It narrates a story of personal rejection. It takes impersonal events, the random currents of other people's lives, and makes them deeply, painfully personal. Your peace is shattered not by the bump of the boat, but by the critic's insistence that you were targeted. It creates a you that is a victim and a them that is an aggressor. And in the space between, all manner of suffering is born. You have felt this collision countless times. You send an email at work, and the reply that comes back feels abrupt, even hostile. The jolt is felt. The critic immediately begins its work, populating the other boat. They think your work is poor. They are trying to undermine you. This is a personal attack. Your body tenses. Your mind begins composing an angry defense, and your peace is gone. But what if you could pause, breathe, and look again? What if you chose to see the other boat as empty? Perhaps that person is having a terrible day. Perhaps they are under a deadline you know nothing about. perhaps they are simply unskilled at written communication. To see their boat as empty is not to condone their behavior, but to refuse to let it steal your tranquility. You are no longer reacting to a villain. You are simply responding to a situation. You adjust your course. This changes everything. On social media, someone leaves a cruel comment. The boat collides. The critic screams for retaliation. But with this wisdom, you can see the comment not as an arrow aimed at you, but as a sign of the suffering of the person who sent it. Their boat is not steered by a coherent malice toward you. It is drifting on a current of their own pain. The boat is empty of any real meaning concerning your worth. It is a reflection of them, not you. And so, you feel no need to shout into the fog. You can simply let it drift by. This practice of emptying the boats around you is profoundly liberating. It is an act of supreme emotional intelligence. You stop giving away your power, your peace, your energy to events and people that are simply adrift on the great river of life. You reclaim your serenity, not by changing the world outside, but by changing the way you choose to see it. Learning to see the boats around you as empty brings peace in the heat of the moment. But what of the moments that have already passed? What of the collisions from yesterday or from 10 years ago, whose memory still sends ripples through your heart? The critic is not just a predictor of future failures, but also a relentless historian of past grievances. It is here we turn to the story of two monks, one senior and one junior, on a long pilgrimage. Their journey took them to the bank of a river, swollen and muddy from recent rains. A young woman in a beautiful silk gown stood there, distressed, unable to cross without ruining her finery. Monastic vows strictly forbade these monks from touching a woman. The junior monk stood back, flustered, unsure what to do. The senior monk, however, walked to the woman, wordlessly lifted her into his arms, carried her across the churning water, and gently set her down on the other side. She bowed in gratitude, and the monks continued their walk in silence. Hours passed. The sun began to set. The junior monk grew more and more agitated, his brow furrowed, his steps heavy. Finally, he could bear it no longer. He burst out, "Brother, how could you do that? You know our vows. We are forbidden to touch a woman, let alone a young and beautiful one in a fine gown. It was a serious transgression." The senior monk looked at his companion, his face calm and gentle. He replied softly, "I left the woman by the river hours ago. Are you still carrying her?" This question is one of the most profound in all of Zen. It pierces directly to the heart of so much human suffering. The senior monk performed an action, an act of simple, present moment compassion, and then he let it go. The moment was complete, and he moved on, unburdened. The junior monk, however, did nothing at all. Yet he picked up the idea of the event, the judgment of it, and carried it with him. The weight of it grew heavier with every step, poisoning his mind and stealing his peace for hours. Your inner critic is the junior monk on the path of your life. It is the part of you that refuses to put things down. It carries every mistake, every perceived slight, every awkward moment, every hurt, long after the event itself has dissolved into the past. A person goes through their day. A difficult conversation happens with their boss. The conversation ends. Yet, for the rest of the afternoon, they are still carrying it, they are in a meeting, but they are mentally replaying the conversation. They are eating dinner with their family, but they are internally arguing, thinking of all the things they should have said. The boss, the real person, is long gone, but the mental representation of the boss, the memory of the woman by the river, is still being carried. This is the nature of psychological baggage. It is not the event that weighs us down. It is our refusal to let it go. The critic believes that by carrying the memory, by re-examining it endlessly, it is somehow protecting you or solving a problem. But it is only perpetuating the suffering, keeping the wound fresh. Think now of your own life. What women are you still carrying? Perhaps it is the memory of a promotion you didn't get. The event is over. The decision was made. Yet you are still carrying the injustice of it, the disappointment. You carry it into new projects, dimming your enthusiasm. You carry it into interactions with colleagues, coloring them with suspicion. I left that moment months ago. Why are you still carrying it? Perhaps you are carrying the sharp words of an argument with a loved one. The argument is over. Perhaps apologies have been made, but you are still carrying the sting of the words, replaying them in quiet moments, allowing them to cast a shadow over the present peace. I left that argument in the past. Why are you still carrying it? The release is not a matter of condoning or forgetting. The senior monk did not deny what happened. The release is in recognizing that the event is over. It exists now only as a thought form in your mind, an echo you are choosing to sustain. You can feel the weight of these burdens in your body right now, the tension in your shoulders, the tightness in your stomach. That is the feeling of carrying what is no longer yours to hold. The invitation in this very moment is to gently, compassionately put it all down. Put the woman down by the river. Let the current of time carry her away. Feel the lightness that comes when you stop carrying the dead weight of yesterday. Your hands are finally free to engage with the life that is here, right now. Once a person learns to put down the heavy burdens of the past, a new challenge often arises from the critic. It shifts its focus from what you have done to what you are. It begins to point out the very cracks in the vessel of your being, the perceived flaws, the weaknesses, the imperfections you fear make you unworthy. It is here that the story of an old water-bearer offers a healing balm. Every day, this man carried 2 large pots, hung on either end of a pole he balanced across his shoulders. One pot was perfect and always delivered a full portion of water. The other pot had a long crack in it, and by the end of the long walk from the stream to his master's house, it would arrive only half full. For 2 years, this went on daily. The perfect pot was proud of its accomplishments, but the poor cracked pot was deeply ashamed of its own imperfection, miserable that it could only do half of what it had been made for. After 2 years of what it perceived as bitter failure, the cracked pot spoke to the water-bearer one day by the stream. "I am so ashamed of myself," it said. "Because of this crack in my side, water leaks out all the way back to the master's house. I want to apologize." The water-bearer smiled kindly. "As we return to the master's house," he said, "I want you to notice the beautiful flowers along the path." And indeed, as they went up the hill, the cracked pot saw a glorious trail of sun-kissed flowers on its side of the path. But still, it felt the sting of its failure as it saw that at the end of the walk, it was still half empty. The bearer said to the pot, "Did you not notice that the flowers grow only on your side of the path? I have always known about your flaw, so I planted flower seeds on your side, and every day, as we walk back, you have watered them. For 2 years, I have been able to pick these beautiful flowers to decorate the master's table. Without you being just the way you are, there would not have been this beauty to grace the house." This story speaks directly to the heart of the inner critic's deepest lie, the lie of perfectionism. Your critic is the voice of the cracked pot before it understood its purpose. It fixates on the leak, the flaw, the ways in which you do not measure up to some imaginary, perfect standard. It convinces you that your worth is conditional upon being flawless, whole, and unbreakable. And so a person spends their life trying to hide their cracks, to patch them up, to pretend they don't exist, all while carrying a secret, heavy shame. The water bearer is the voice of wisdom, of deep, compassionate self-awareness. He does not discard the pot. He does not try to fix it. He accepts it exactly as it is and integrates its supposed flaw into a purpose of breathtaking beauty. Your life path has a side full of flowers that you may have never acknowledged. The critic looks back at your history and points to the cracks, the degree you never used, the career path you abandoned, the relationship that failed. It calls this wasted time, evidence of your flawed nature. But what if you were to look again with the eyes of the water bearer? How did that wasted time water the flowers? That degree may have taught you a way of thinking that you use every day without realizing it. That failed relationship may have cracked your heart open, making you far more compassionate and loving than you ever would have been otherwise. The critic sees only the leak. Wisdom sees the flowers. Consider the very traits you are most ashamed of. Perhaps your crack is that you are too sensitive. The critic has used this against you for years, telling you to be tougher, less emotional. But look at the path beside you. Where are the flowers? Your sensitivity has likely made you a deeply empathetic friend, a creative soul, a person who can be moved to tears by beauty. It is the very source of your connection to the world. Perhaps your crack is a history of anxiety. The critic calls this a weakness, but that experience may have given you a profound understanding of human suffering, making you a kinder, less judgmental presence in the lives of others. Your greatest perceived flaws are often inextricably linked to your greatest gifts. They are two sides of the same coin. To be human is to be a cracked pot. The journey of healing is not about becoming perfect, but about planting flowers. It is about turning to your own beautiful, flawed self and finally saying, without you being just the way you are, there would not have been this beauty to grace the world. After a person learns to embrace their whole self, cracks and all, the critic may deploy its most powerful weapon, the relentless, analytical mind. This is the part of the mind that believes every problem can be solved with enough thinking, that every question has a logical answer. It traps a person in endless loops of thought, seeking a certainty that life rarely offers. To break this spell, Zen masters developed a unique and powerful tool, not an answer, but a question designed to shatter the cage of logic. It is called a koan. A master might sit with his student and ask, simply, We all know the sound of two hands clapping, but tell me, what is the sound of one hand? The student, eager to please, would go away and think. He would return to the master and say, "It is the sound of the wind sighing through the pine trees." The master would shake his head. "No." The student would try again. "It is the sound of an owl calling in the night." "No." "It is the whisper of falling snow." "No." For months, even years, the student would search for the answer. He would bring the master every sound he could imagine: the cry of a cicada, the hiss of a fire, the deafening roar of a waterfall. He would even bring the master silence itself. And every time, the master would simply reject the answer. The student's logical mind, his brilliant intellect, would be pushed to the very brink of madness. It would run in circles, becoming more and more frustrated, exhausted, and desperate, until finally it would collapse. The student, having exhausted all possible concepts and ideas, would fall into a state of profound not knowing. And in that spacious silence, born from the death of the analytical mind, the true answer would arise, not as a thought, but as a direct experience. The sound of one hand is the very sound of life itself, perceived directly, without the filter of the thinking mind. The koan is not a riddle. It is medicine. It is a surgical tool designed to break the tyranny of the part of your mind that the critic calls home. Your critic is a creature of pure logic and language. It lives and breathes in the world of pros and cons, of analysis and debate, of right and wrong. It believes it can think its way to peace. It believes that if it can just figure everything out, then you will be safe. The koan reveals this to be a lie. It presents the thinking mind with a problem it cannot solve, forcing it to short circuit. In the silence that follows that short circuit, a deeper intelligence can finally be heard. This is the intelligence of the heart, of the body, of intuition. It is a knowing that does not come from thought, but from being. You have given your own mind impossible koans, perhaps without even realizing it. What is the perfect career path for me, you ask? And the critic launches into a frantic, endless analysis. It creates spreadsheets of possibilities. It weighs every variable. It projects endless futures of success and failure. It is the student bringing every possible sound to the master. And the result is not clarity, but a state of complete paralysis. A modern affliction known as analysis paralysis. You are frozen, unable to choose, because the logical mind can never find the perfect answer it seeks. The wisdom of the koan teaches that the answer is not found in more thinking. It is found in the silence after the thinking has exhausted itself. The answer is a feeling, a resonance, a deep, quiet yes that you can only hear when the critic finally runs out of arguments. Or perhaps your koan is, what is the meaning of my life? The critic treats this like a mathematical equation and then berates you for failing to solve it. It demands a neat, verbal mission statement. But life's meaning is not a concept to be found. It is an experience to be lived. The meaning of your life is the sound of one hand. It is the feeling of sunlight on your skin. It is the taste of cool water when you are thirsty. It is the sound of a loved one's laughter. It is the bitter ache of loss and the quiet strength you discover in its wake. It cannot be captured in words, and to even try is to miss it entirely. The koan invites you to stop demanding that life explain itself to you and to simply be present for it, to drop the search for answers, and in doing so, to become the living answer itself. When the relentless engine of the analytical mind finally quiets, a space opens up, a clearing. For the first time, a person may experience a silence that is not empty, but full of potential. The work so far, seeing the critic as an echo, letting go of judgment, observing thoughts without attachment, and breaking the loops of logic, is the essential work of clearing the ground. A Zen master was once asked by a student how to find peace. The master, who was tending his small vegetable patch, did not stop his work. He said, "First, you must see the weeds and understand their nature. Then, you must gently pull them from the earth. Then you prepare the soil, making it soft and receptive. Then, you plant the seeds of what you wish to grow. And finally, you must water them, give them sun, and protect them as they sprout. You cannot force a flower to bloom, but you can create the conditions for its blossoming. Your mind is this garden. For years, perhaps a lifetime, the inner critic has been the tireless, automatic planter of weeds. It sows seeds of doubt, fear, insufficiency, and shame. Because these seeds have been watered for so long with your attention and belief, they have grown into thick, thorny bushes that can seem to a person like the entire landscape of their mind. But the work of pulling these weeds, of seeing them for the invasive, life-choking thoughts they are, creates a new possibility. It prepares the soil. Now, you can consciously choose what to plant in their place. This is not wishful thinking. This is the profound, practical science of neuroplasticity. Every time you allow the critic to run its course, you strengthen the neural pathways of anxiety and self-judgment. You are, in effect, watering the weeds. When you intentionally introduce a new, wholesome thought or feeling, you begin to carve a new neural pathway. You are planting a seed. At first, this new pathway is just a tiny little trail. It feels unnatural, even difficult to walk down it. But every time you do, the path becomes a little wider, a little clearer, a little more familiar. With time and gentle repetition, you can transform the entire landscape of your mind, turning a thorny thicket into a flourishing garden of peace, compassion, and resilience. You become the master gardener of your own inner world. So what seeds do we plant? We plant the very qualities we wish to harvest. The critic is an expert at scanning the world and yourself for what is wrong. The antidote is to intentionally plant the seed of gratitude. This is a simple but revolutionary act of mental gardening. At the end of the day, as you lay down to rest, the critic is often ready with its list of the day's failures, worries, and regrets. This is its habitual weed planting. You can choose, instead, to plant a different seed. Intentionally bring to mind one small thing from your day for which you are genuinely grateful. Perhaps it is the warmth of your blanket, the taste of a simple meal, a moment of quiet you found for yourself, a kind word someone offered. At first, the critic may mock this effort. How can you be grateful for that when all of these other things are wrong? It will sneer. Ignore it. Simply feel the small, quiet warmth of that one seed of gratitude. Do this every night. You are training your brain to scan for what is good. You are watering a flower, and its roots will grow deeper than you can imagine. Another powerful seed to plant, especially when the critic is attacking, is the seed of loving kindness, or metta. When the voice of "I am not good enough" or "I am a failure" arises, it is a thorny weed, sharp and painful. The gardener's response is not to argue with the weed, but to plant a flower right next to it. You can silently, gently offer these phrases to yourself. May I be safe. May I be at peace. May I be kind to myself. It may feel hollow at first. The critic may call you a fool. That is fine. You are not saying these phrases because you believe them in that moment. You are saying them because you are planting a seed. You are creating an alternative voice. You are tending to the part of you that is wounded. You are creating the conditions for the flower of self-compassion to eventually bloom. A fragrance so sweet that it will, in time, perfume the entire garden. As a person tends the garden of their mind, planting seeds of gratitude and compassion, they may begin to wonder about the original source of the weeds. Why does the critic work so tirelessly to sow doubt and fear? What is it trying to accomplish? To understand this, we must go deeper, past the garden walls and into the very castle of the self. Imagine a great old castle, surrounded by a high wall. At the gate stands a fierce dog, barking and snarling at anyone who dares to approach. Its teeth are bared, its voice is terrifying, and it seems to be a creature of pure aggression. For years, the person who lives in the castle has tried to silence this dog, to chain it, to fight it, believing it to be a monster. But the dog only ever grows more ferocious. One day, instead of fighting the dog, the person walks past it, up the long, winding stairs to the highest tower of the castle. And there, alone in a small room, sits a very small, very frightened child. And it is then they finally understand. The dog is not a monster. It is a guardian. And it is not guarding the castle. It is guarding the child. This is the deepest secret of your inner critic. The critic is the barking guard dog. Its harshness, its relentless warnings, its cutting judgments. This is the noise it makes to scare away anything it perceives as a threat. And deep within you, it is guarding the most tender, vulnerable part of your being, your inner child. This is the part of you that holds the original wounds, the part that felt the sting of not being chosen for the team, the shame of being scolded in front of others, the terror of being abandoned, the quiet ache of not feeling seen or understood. At some point, long ago, this child was deeply hurt, and in that moment, the critic was born. He created a strategy, a fierce and desperate vow. I will never let this child be hurt like that again. I will criticize them before anyone else can. I will scare them away from any risk of rejection. I will demand perfection so that no one can ever find fault with them again. The critic's methods are painful. They create a life of anxiety and limitation. But its motive, at its very core, is protective. It is a misguided, traumatized love. For your entire life, you have likely been at war with the dog, believing it is the source of your problems. You have argued with it, hated it, tried to starve it. But the path to peace, the only way to quiet the barking, is to walk past the dog and go directly to the child. When the child feels safe, the dog can finally rest. You have seen this dynamic in your own life. When you face a situation of social risk, like public speaking or meeting new people, the critic's barking becomes deafening. They won't like you. You will say something stupid. You will be rejected. This is the dog, frantically trying to keep you away from the castle gate, where the pain of potential judgment lies. The old way is to fight the dog, to try and overpower its voice with affirmations, which often fails. The new way is to hear the barking and then turn your attention inward, to speak to the small child inside who is terrified of being seen as foolish or unlikable. You can say to this part of you, "I know you're scared. It's okay to be scared, but I am here now. I am the adult, and I will keep us safe. I will not abandon you, no matter what happens." As the child begins to feel the warmth of your adult presence, its terror subsides, and the dog, sensing the child is no longer in peril, begins to quiet down. This is also the root of perfectionism. When you are creating something, a project, a piece of art, a new business, the critic can be merciless. It's not good enough. It's not original. People will laugh. This is the dog, guarding the profound vulnerability of your creative inner child. That child has poured its heart into this creation, and the thought of it being rejected feels like a rejection of its very soul. Instead of arguing with the critic about the quality of the work, you can turn to the child and say, "What you have made is an expression of you, and that makes it beautiful and worthy. We will share it with courage, but your worth is not dependent on how it is received. I am so proud of you for creating." By shifting your focus from fighting the protector to comforting the protected, you transform the entire inner landscape from a battlefield into a sanctuary. You become the loving parent your inner child has been waiting for their entire life. When a person learns to comfort the frightened child within, a profound peace begins to settle. The guard dog of the critic relaxes its vigil. But one final question, the deepest of them all, remains. Who exactly is this self that the critic has been so fiercely defending? Who is this child it has been trying to protect? The entire architecture of our inner struggle, the echoes, the judgments, the burdens, the flaws, the fears, is built upon the assumption that there is a solid, separate, continuous me at the center of it all. Zen wisdom invites us to look directly at this assumption, and in that looking, to find the ultimate freedom. Imagine a single white cloud drifting in a vast blue sky. This cloud believes it is a thing unto itself. It has a name, a shape, a story. It worries about its appearance, whether it is grand enough. It compares itself to other clouds, feeling small and insignificant next to the great thunderheads. It fears the wind, which threatens to tear it apart. Most of all, it fears its own end. The moment it will thin into nothingness or fall as rain, disappearing forever. The entire life of the cloud is a struggle for survival, a defense of its fragile identity. But from the perspective of the sky, there was never a separate cloud. The cloud was always just a momentary expression of the sky itself, a beautiful, temporary formation of water and light. It was never separate from the air, the sun, the moisture that composed it. Its dissolution is not a death. It is a return. It is the form releasing back into formlessness. The water does not cease to exist when it becomes rain. It simply changes its expression and rejoins the great cycle of life. The cloud's fear was based on a misunderstanding of its own nature. It thought it was a noun, when it was always a verb, a process, a dance. You have spent your life believing you are the cloud. The ego, the sense of me, is this cloud. It is a construct of memories, beliefs, roles, and sensations that you have learned to identify as yourself. The inner critic is the anxious meteorologist for this one. Single cloud, constantly checking for threats, predicting storms, and mourning its inevitable changes. The entire project of the critic, its relentless drive to improve you, protect you, and perfect you, is based on this mistaken identity. It is trying to make the cloud permanent, indestructible, and flawless, a task that is impossible and the source of all its frantic energy. The most profound teaching of Zen is called sunyata, or emptiness. It does not mean nothingness. It means empty of a separate, independent self. It means that, like the cloud, you are not a solid, isolated entity. You are a process, inextricably woven into the fabric of the universe. Your body is made of the food, air, and water of the earth. Your thoughts are made of the language, ideas, and culture you have absorbed. You are not a thing, but a happening. A wave is empty of a separate self. It is nothing but the ocean moving in a particular way for a moment. You are the universe expressing itself as a human being for a little while. When this truth begins to dawn, the entire foundation of the critic cracks and crumbles. If there is no solid, separate me to defend, what is the critic's job? If there is no permanent self to be flawed, who is it trying to perfect? The fear of failure is the cloud's fear of losing its shape. The craving for approval is the cloud's desire to be told it is a good cloud. The fear of death is the cloud's terror of dissolving into the sky. But what if you are the sky? The sky does not fear the coming and going of clouds. It is the silent, boundless space in which all clouds are born, live out their fleeting, beautiful lives, and dissolve back into. The sky is not harmed by the stormiest of thunderheads, nor is it improved by the most perfect, fluffy white cloud. It is the serene, unchanging witness of all weather. This is your true nature. You are the awareness in which the cloud of you, with its thoughts, its feelings, its story, appears. Think of your online identity, the profile you so carefully construct. The critic obsesses over it, fearing a negative comment, craving a like. That profile is a perfect, tiny cloud. To see its emptiness is to know that your vast being cannot be contained in or harmed by it. Think of your aging body. The critic mourns its changes, for the cloud is losing its familiar shape. But to identify with the sky is to watch these changes with a tender, peaceful acceptance, knowing that your essential nature is timeless and formless. This is the final release. It is the end of the war, because the territory everyone was fighting over is revealed to have been sky all along. And so, you rest here, in this vast, quiet, sky-like awareness. The journey does not end on a distant mountaintop, in a state of permanent escape from the world. It ends here. The final stage of this path has always been the return to the marketplace, the return to your life. The goal was never to destroy the cloud of your human self, but to know, in the very marrow of your bones, that you are the sky. And now, you can return to the world, not as a person desperately seeking peace, but as a person who is peace, moving through the dance of life. You will still have a name, a body, a story, but you will wear it more lightly, like a comfortable garment, no longer mistaking it for the whole of your being. When the voice of the critic arises now, as it may from old habit, you will not see it as a monster or an enemy. You will not even see it as a guard dog. You will see it simply as weather, a small, passing storm cloud in the vastness of your sky. You will feel no need to argue with the rain, nor to command the wind. You can watch it with a kind of gentle, detached amusement, a deep compassion for this small, anxious pattern of energy that does not yet know it is already safe, already whole, already home. You can let it pass without resistance, without leaving a trace on the boundless blue of your true nature. Living as the sky means you can walk through the world with a new kind of freedom. You can engage in your work, your relationships, your passions, with your whole heart, because your essential worth is no longer on the line. Success and failure are simply clouds that come and go. Praise and blame are the shifting winds. You are free to act with courage and integrity, not for the sake of defending a fragile ego, but for the simple joy of authentic expression. You bring this stillness with you. In a moment of conflict, you can be the quiet space in the room. In a moment of another's suffering, you can be the compassionate presence that does not need to fix, but simply hold space for what is. You are no longer a victim of the world's weather. You are the sky that holds it all. And now, there is nothing left to do, nothing left to figure out. The journey inward now dissolves into the simple, profound act of rest. Allow the insights of this journey to settle, not as concepts in the mind, but as a deep, resonant feeling in the body. Feel the sky-like peace infusing every cell. Give your body permission to grow heavy, to release its grip completely. Feel the softening of the muscles around your eyes, your jaw, your shoulders. Let go of the need to hold yourself together. You are being held. The earth is holding your body. The sky of your own awareness is holding your experience. There is no safer place to be. Let the story of your day dissolve. Let the roles you have played fall away. The worker, the parent, the child, the friend. Let them all melt back into the formless potential from which they arose. Let the plans for tomorrow wait. They are just thoughts, future clouds that have not yet formed. For now, there is only this breath, a gentle rising and falling, the quiet rhythm of the universe, breathing you. Each breath is a wave of peace, washing through your entire being, carrying away the last remnants of tension, the last echoes of the critic. You are sinking now, deeper and deeper into a profound stillness. This stillness is not empty. It is vibrant with life. It is the peace you are searching for. It is the silence that was here all along, waiting patiently beneath all the noise. There is nowhere else to go. You have arrived. The quiet you were seeking was the quiet you are.